Deuteronomy 24. If a man marries a woman and then it happens that he no longer likes her because he has found something wrong with her, he may give her divorce papers, put them in her hand, and send her off. After she leaves, if she becomes another man's wife and he also comes to hate her, and the second husband also gives her divorce papers, puts them in her hand, and sends her off, or if he should die, then the first husband who divorced her cannot marry her again. She had made herself ritually unclean, and her remarriage would be an abomination to the presence of God and defile the land with sin. When a man takes a new wife, he is not to go out with the army or to be given any business or work duties. He gets 1 year off simply because to be home to make his wife happy. Don't seize a handmill or an upper millstone as collateral for a loan. You're seizing someone's very life. If a man is caught kidnapping one of his kinsmen, someone of the people of Israel, to enslave or sell, the kidnapper must die. When you make a loan of any kind, don't enter his house to claim his pledge. Wait outside. Let the man whom you made the pledge bring the pledge to you outside. Don't abuse a laborer who is destitute. Parents shall not be put to death for their children, nor children for their parents. Each person shall be put to death for his own sin. Make sure foreigners and orphans get their just rights. When you harvest your grain and forget a sheaf back in the field, don't go back and get it. Leave it for the foreigner and the orphan and the widow, so that God your God will bless you in all your work. Deuteronomy 25. When men have a legal dispute, let them go to court. The judges will decide between them, declaring one innocent and the other guilty. Don't muzzle an ox while it is threshing. When brothers are living together and one of them dies without having had a son, the widow of the dead brother shall not marry a stranger from outside the family. Her husband's brother is to come to her and marry her. The first son that she bears will be named after the dead husband, so his name won't die out of Israel. But if the brother doesn't want to marry his sister-in-law, she is to go to the leaders of the gate and say, "My brother-in-law refuses to keep his brother's name alive." Then the leaders will call for the brother and confront him. If he stands defiant and says, "I don't want her," his sister-in-law is to pull the sandal off his foot, spit in his face, and say, "That is what happens to the man who refuses to build up the family of his brother. His name in Israel will be family no sandal." When two men are in a fight and the wife of the one man trying to rescue her husband grabs the genital of the man hitting him, you are to cut off her hand, show no pity. Don't grab around with your two weights, one heavy and other light, and don't keep two measures on one hand. Don't forget what Amalekite did to you on the road after you left Egypt, how he attacked you when you were tired. Deuteronomy 26. Once you enter the land that God your God is giving you as an inheritance and take it over from the settled down, put them in a basket and go to the place of God, set apart for the worship. At that time, go to the priest who is to say, "I announce to God your God today that I have entered the land that God has promised our ancestors." The priest will take the basket from you. Place it in the presence of God. Bow low in the presence of God and rejoice. Celebrate all the good things that God has given you and your family. Every third year, the year of the tithe, a tenth of your produce to the Levite. This very day, God, your God, commands you to follow these rules and regulations. And today, God has reaffirmed that you are dearly held treasure, just as he promised, a people entrusted with keeping his commandments. Deuteronomy 27. Moses commanded the leaders of Israel and charged the people, "Keep every commandment that I command you today. So when you've crossed the Jordan, erect these stones on Mount Ebal. Then coat them with plaster. Build an altar of stones for God. Write all the words of the revelation on the stones. Incise them sharply. After you've crossed the Jordan, these tribes will stand on Mount to bless the people. God's curse on everyone who carves or casts a God image. God's curse on anyone who demeans a parent. God's curse on anyone who moves his neighbor's boundary. God's curse on anyone who misdirects a blind man on the road. God's curse on anyone who interferes with justice due to the foreigner. God's curse on anyone who has had sex with his father's wife. He has violated the woman who belongs to his father. God's curse on anyone who has had sex with an animal. God's curse on anyone who has had sex with his sister. God's curse on anyone who has had sex with his mother-in-law. God's curse on anyone who kills his neighbor in secret. God's curse on anyone who takes a bribe. God's curse on anyone does not give substance to the words of the revelation by living them.